Hey guys, welcome back to House Parties. I'm Braylon and I'm here with Dan.
I'm back.
Yay, thank goodness. I'm just kidding. We love you, John.
We are thankful that John was on the house party video, for the record.
Okay, John's gonna yell at me.
That's staying in the video.
Okay.
Don't cut that, Shelby.
Alright guys, so we're in this series by faith. We're doing that throughout our church and then we're also doing it in Rush. So this is pretty much something cool that we're getting to focus on. And yeah, so last week we were looking at Abel's faith and how his faith in God led to an incredible act of generosity. It was his first and it was best. So that was a really cool comparison. And now this week we're looking at Noah. So the Bible has a lot of stories. And why do you think the writers of Hebrews chose Noah as this example of faith?
Yeah, it's Noah. In the story, Noah's like a regular guy, and we just kind of stumble upon him where we read it only took 6 chapters. Noah's in Genesis chapter 6. It only took 6 chapters for us to learn that the world has gone off the rails and everything is terrible, like horrible, evil, terrible. And yet there seems to be one dude who kind of stands out, and that's Noah. And so I think it's this really cool story of just this regular guy who listened to God, trusted God, and was a light in a very dark world. And then through his actions, which are small but then big, like God kind of resets the world. So it's a lot of faith to be able to reset the world with you.
Kind of a crazy story, honestly. And it's normally a kid's story, too. Like, they have, like, the cutesy little animals on the boat, but the whole thing about, like, a world reset's pretty cool. And there's so many different details, like the rain and whatnot. So why is it more about faith rather than those, like, smaller details?
Yeah, I think we get caught up in the story sometimes as like you said, a kid's story at night before you go to bed about how God wipes out the whole world. Kind of a terrifying story. And then there's so many details, right? There's so many details about how big the ark is and how long, what kind of wood he's supposed to use and where he's supposed to make it and how he's supposed to make it and how many animals are going to be on there and what order the animals and what they're supposed to do when they're on the boat and how long were they on the boat and how long did it rain and where did the boat end up and is the ark out there somewhere? And so people argue, is it a true story? Is it a fake? Is it like a metaphor? Jesus taught it's a true story, so we believe it's a true story. But I think it's less about the ark and the animals and the flood and the length of time and all that stuff, and it's just more about how there was a man that God spoke to in a very dark world, and God said, hey, I'm going to do something, and I need you to do this. And the key is there's verses that just say, and Noah did what God asked. And so I think it's less about the details, all those little details that make it happen, and it's more about that Noah just listened to God, believed what God said was true, and through his faith did what was asked of him. And so, but I think we just kind of miss that sometimes in the details of all the craziness, when really it's like that stuff, not that that's not important at all, but it's just much more important about the faith and the actions Noah had than all those details.
Right. And so, like, him obeying, and it, like, took so long. And so
took a very long time.
Yeah. And so we live in a world of, like, instant gratification. And so it's like we want something and we want it, like, right then. And so we want those instant results. And what does, like, Noah's story specifically show us about how faith?
Yeah, there's some argument about how long it took Noah to build this ark, but really it's this guy and his family building a massive boat. And so a lot of people, like, the kind of general consensus is it took him 50 to 75 years to build that boat, which is a long time. I'm 33. So, like, my entire life, and he'd be halfway done with this boat. That's crazy to me. Like, and so I think we, I don't know, we think, like, I had faith yesterday and God didn't show up. Like,
right.
What the heck? You know, I prayed yesterday, God didn't do it, so I'm going to give up. And Noah's just such a story of consistency and faithfulness, right? I'm sure that every day he went out there to build the boat. He wasn't like, I fully believe. Because the real story is, like, we don't even know if they knew what rain was at this point in the world.
That's so
like, we don't even know if they
about.
knew, like, nobody knew what a flood was. Nobody, And so here he is building a boat in the middle of the dry land, and they're like, this dude is crazy. So every day he's showing up. It's, you know, it took a long, long, long time. And I think that's what's so impressive is Noah's faith day after day. Some days higher, some days lower, but still stayed true every single day. And I think there's also something, too, that if God called Noah to this and he could have built the ark in a week, let's just say he had tools and he could have built it in a week, do we think his faith would have been ready for what God was going to do if it only took him a week? Instead, is that the 75 years, while he probably wasn't like, man, I loved every minute of the 75 years of hard labor and waiting and being made fun of by the people around me, God was doing something in him through his faith. And by the end of the time, that's probably what made him ready for what God was going to do in this massive event in the world at the end of 75 years.
That's good. And obviously, I think a man building a boat for about 75 years, he kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. But, like, how do you think more, I guess, in another way, how does he stand out in his world, and how does that connect with us as students? So, like, kind of tying those together.
Yeah, I think, like we talked about, a boat in the middle of the land when nobody knows what a flood is going to make him a weirdo.
Yeah, for sure.
And but his faith led to action, and his actions stood out. Nobody else is building a boat. Nobody else is preparing, right? God told them what was going to happen. Hey, I'm going to bring a flood. I'm going to cleanse this place. It's terrible. You know, God, I think that we sometimes get caught up on that idea that God is like that. And it's almost like God's like a loving parent who looks down and goes, man, you know what you're doing is wrong. I gotta intervene. I have to stop this. And so then there's Noah doing this thing that's totally against the grain, standing out. But I think the way he's doing it is important in that when we read about it, we don't read that Noah got up on a stage and started yelling at everyone that they better turn or burn. He didn't make a sign next to the construction site that said, like, get right or get left behind. You know, like, he didn't make those signs. He didn't have a megaphone to tell people how terrible they were. He just followed Jesus, like, action, not Jesus. He followed God. Jesus wasn't born yet. But he just followed God's instruction. And I think through his life, he didn't hide it. He didn't, like, pretend like he wasn't doing what God asked him to do. And it just was noticeable by other people. And so I think he just was a very light, a bright light in a dark world. And I think that we can take something from that, right? That, like, we're not called to go to our schools with a megaphone. We're not called to, like, just make signs that said that say hell is real and you better straighten up or something like that. We're just called to go into our schools, our workplaces, our neighborhoods, our jobs, and live like Jesus. And I think our world is dark too. Like, there's a lot of light, but our world is dark too. And so I think when we act and live in a way that's kind of like Jesus, where we love and care for people and we serve, we do things with excellence like we're called to, it stands out and people notice. And yeah, okay, like Noah, it probably opens us up to maybe some ridicule sometimes, but it's worth it in that we can be a light. We don't have to use the megaphone. We don't have to use the sign. We can just use our actions, which is kind of what Noah did.
Yeah, I love that. That's really cool. And I think that also ties back into our, like, this is our campus and how we can, like, be small changes and then it makes a difference in a way. So, yeah. But sometimes we feel like God is, like, slow to answer. How does Noah's story show us, like, God's patience?
Yeah, well, we've established this already. 75 years is a long time. How many days did Noah be like, is he actually going to do this? Like, what if I build this boat and, like, this doesn't happen? But I love, John brought it up on the Sunday. He talked about this, 2 Peter 3:9. So New Testament, after Jesus, Peter writes this and says, the Lord does not delay his promise, as some understand delay, but is patient with you, not wanting any to perish, but all to come to repentance. So I think it's this idea that, like, God isn't slow, he's patient. And so his timing way better than ours. I like the way he says God doesn't delay his promise, as some understand delay. Meaning, like, the verse before, he talks about how to God 1,000 years is a second, and a second or a minute is 1,000 years, you know. Like, God's outside of time. And so, like, we feel like, oh my word, this is taking forever. Like, when are you going to show up? When are you going to do this? In my mind, this would have been better if it happened yesterday. Where are you at, God? And the reality is his timing is better than ours. He knows better than us. He sees the big picture more than we do. And he's not delaying. He's not stalling. He's patient. He just knows that the right time is the right time. I don't know about you. There have been plenty of times where I want something, and I'm like, this will be best if I wait until Thursday. And I'm like, but I really want it now, and it'll be pretty good right now. And so I just grab it now. But the reality is, it would have been better on Thursday. And I think God's like, I know it's better on Thursday. It's coming on Thursday. Like, you know. And so I think it just shows us he doesn't delay. He knows exactly the timing. And he showed it again with Noah. And his delay isn't for nothing. It's so that other people can come to know him and be changed by him.
I think that's good. It's, like, a good way to switch it because it's like, oh, God, like, when are you going to bring this? It's like us, like, do we have to be patient and wait for God? But it's really, like, switching it to, like, God's patient with us, you know, like that. I think I like that switch.
The important thing John said on Sunday when he was teaching is that faith always takes action, like real faith, authentic faith isn't just faith, it comes with action. And we saw that with Noah, right? Noah actually believed God, trusted God, and took action. And he did it for 75 years and then, in essence, saved the world. So I think for us, we have to ask ourselves this week as we go to group and as we walk through our week, okay, if I have faith that I trust in God's promise, I trust in what he said, what's my action? Like, what's my step? And so I think, I mean, maybe you can talk about this, like, as a student. I don't know, like, it's a pretty broad statement, but, like, what do you think could be some, like, faith steps for students out there?
Honestly, I think a good one that we generally use in chaos is just, like, sitting with someone you wouldn't normally sit with, like, taking that step. And that's also showing, like, you being different. Like, that's, like, doing something that it's, like, maybe I wouldn't normally sit with this person, but, hey, like, that's being kind. Like, maybe you feel like God's been pulling you. It's like, I see that kid every day sitting by themselves and, like, I don't have anything better to do. It's like, you can go sit with them. That's a good step of faith, I feel like. And that's so small, too. But I feel like it's showing you being different. And then it's also doing something that it's like, hey, like, I will feel good after this, because it's like, I know I'm helping someone in a way that is kind of like, it's simple, but it makes you feel good. I don't know, but that's a very simple one.
Yeah, I think they can all be simple. Sometimes we think action steps of faith are got to be big, got to be massive. But Noah's ended up really big. He built a giant boat and saved the world from a flood. So it ended big.
Right.
But the daily wasn't big. The daily was, hey, I got to cut this wood. Hey, I got to go cut these trees down. Hey, I got to sand this. Hey, I got to put these together. Like, the daily were small things. And so I think if we think big picture, we think, yeah, we want to flip the spiritual climate of our schools.
Right. And it's like feeding the movement. Like, that small act feeds into our movement.
Yeah. But sitting with someone, noticing someone, helping someone with homework, praying for your friends, praying for your class, praying for your school, like the generosity we talked about last week, those little steps of faith are just showing that, hey, we do trust that God's doing something and he has something better for us, and we're just going to step into it. I think that's important.
That's good. All right. Well, hope you enjoyed this lovely video. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll see you next week.